So now it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for this morning, Dr. Penelope DeLeon, Superintendent of Oxnard Union High School District. Dr. DeLeon served as the Chief of Secondary Schools for the Fontana Unified School District since July 1st of 2014. And in that position, she led the district's efforts to improve secondary student performance through the alignment of site-based professional development with the Local Control Accountability Plan, or the LCAP, the development of college and career pathways, and the establishment of programs and strategies which promote equity and access for all students. As a public school educator for nearly 23 years, primarily at the secondary level, Dr. DeLeon served as a high school teacher, assistant principal, secondary instructional specialist, and director of professional development, assessment, and evaluation before becoming chief of secondary schools. She also serves as a delegate to the College Board Academic Assembly. Throughout her career, she has worked to close the achievement gap by nurturing strong parent and community engagement while promoting a culture of collaboration, support, and collegiality for all stakeholders. Dr. DeLeon earned her doctorate in organizational leadership from the University of Laverne, as well as a master's degree in secondary education and educational administration, and recently completed the Stanford Program for Educational Leaders. She's also been certified as a leadership coach by the Association of California School Administrators and holds a school business management certificate. Dr. DeLeon believes it is a great honor to serve as superintendent of the Oxnard Union High School District and steward of a district vision of high academic achievement, endless post-secondary options, and powerful futures for every student. Please help me in welcoming Dr. DeLeon.
Good morning, everyone. How are you today? Oh, now see, that wasn't loud enough, because if you know me, yes, I am the poster child for adult ADHD, and I'm really loud and energetic. So, good morning, everyone. Good morning. That's better. Anyway, thank you all so much for having me today and for being here today. It is a great honor and privilege, particularly to address you for our Special Populations Conference. I want to, again, thank the Ventura County Office of Education for providing this amazing professional development opportunity, but for always providing absolutely fantastic supports for all of the districts in our county. So I want to thank Mr. Mantooth and Dr. Rice here and for the entire staff, and Dr. Mendoza for having me today. Dr. Mendoza, let's give him another big round. He's a champion, and I just again want to thank everyone. I want to thank the awesome staff of VCOE and also of Oxnard Union who came out to videotape me today, which, by the way, I really hate. I really hate being videoed, but that's okay. Again, thank you for having me today. It's a very special privilege of mine to be here. I was asked to come today to talk about a few of our special populations. So I will spend some time later on in my presentation talking about specific supports for foster youth, homeless, pregnant and parenting teens, and migrant education. Those were the ones I was asked to talk about, but I added LGBTQ to that. That is huge. Many of you know I spend half my life in the newspaper because I refuse not to stand up for every single child, which is why, again, my title of Success for Every Child. So what I want to do, though, is spend a good portion of time this morning of my presentation really talking about mindset around every child and what it means to be an advocate for every single child. And I want to start by saying it really has to do with mindset. It really has to do with what you believe as a person and what your core values are. Now, as a person, I've actually, I think when that bio was written, that's a couple years ago, I think I've been in 25 years now. But just me as a person and people who know me, I just love people. I just love every person. And I really want good things to happen for every single child. And I know that every educator in this building today is in that same place. But it has to do with what you're willing to do as an adult and as an educator to put your money where your mouth is, right? That's what it has to do. And so I want to challenge everyone around what you're doing as a district for every child. So I want to talk a little bit about mission and vision for a second. We all have great vision statements and mission statements in our district and goals. And I think we work very hard on those, and sometimes it's an entire district project where we sit around and we talk about, as groups, what should our vision be, what should our mission be, okay? So I want to talk a little bit about that, and what I'm going to do to have us sort of open up that conversation, and I'll show you how that connects to core values and to every child. So what I would like you to do is 10 seconds, for 10 seconds, share, if you know it, share with your neighbor what your district vision for kids is and or mission. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to do that. Mark, set, go. Okay, time. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do, because I told you I have a lot of energy, right? So I'm all about going around the room. So I want you to raise your hand if you feel like you know what your district vision or mission statement is. Raise your hand. You want to share it. We're going to share it. Yes. Okay, here we go. Somebody from OUHST better raise their hand, that's all I can say. I'm just kidding. I'm cheating because I call it.
Okay, so this is for Fillmore High School. The mission of Fillmore High School is to provide a high-quality educational experience which will promote the intellectual, personal, social, and cultural growth of our students and instill in them a desire to achieve excellence. Vision statement. Oh, that's different. Sorry.
Okay, very good. So you want kids to achieve at high levels, learn at high levels, and basically achieve excellence in their lives. Awesome. That's an awesome statement. Who else? Who else knows what their district mission or vision statement might be? Or close. Oh, there's one. Okay.
For Santa Paula Unified School District, we want to provide an equitable education for all students and preparing for college and career.
Very nice. Equitable education for all students, prepare them for college and career. I'm highlighting some important words because you're going to hear them again and again in mission statements. But I'm going to make a point about that in a second. So, who else? Anybody? Yes, there we go. Okay, Lupe. Make me proud, Lupe.
I'm going to paraphrase, but powerful futures for all students.
That's right, that's OUHST. High expectations for powerful futures for every child. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so for Ventura County Office of Education and the Career Education Center, I'm going to piggyback on Santa Paula and say college, career, and life. We want to prepare every student.
Love that. College, career, and life. We're going to prepare every single student. I heard the word every and I heard the word all a lot. Right? Every single mission statement and vision statement that you ever hear will always talk about all kids. And it'll always say something around the effect that all kids can learn, all kids will achieve high expectations, all kids will succeed, all kids will go on to be college and career ready, etc. Am I right? What's the common thread in all of the visions and mission statements? It's a common thread. We want that for who? Oh, for everybody. Way easier said than done, am I right? And you have to be willing to put your money where your mouth And when I think about that, I think about how willing are you to stand up for every child? For every child, no matter who comes out against you. Now, I end up in the newspaper way more than I'd like, probably. But that's because I absolutely will, I don't care what the Fox News, they can blog against me all day long. All day long. But when there's a threat to my kids, I will stand up. And part of that is my own core value as a leader and as a person. But part of that also is because I take something in our Ed Code very seriously. And I want you all to think about this. And I'm going to ask you all to take, I don't know if you have something you can write on, but I'm going to ask you all to take about a minute of reflection time. And I want you to tell me what your idea around this very important idea in our Ed Code is. And it's called the idea of in loco parentis. I would like you all to write down for me what are you familiar with in loco parentis? I can tell you what it is. So that is the education code and the law, which states that when students are with us, we have the same level of responsibility when they're with us during the day as their parents. So if a kid is hurt, we can take them to the hospital. We can make educational decisions for them while they're with us. So I would love it if you would take 1 minute to write for me what your reflections are about your attitude around in loco parentis. What does that mean to you? Okay, I'm going to ask a few brave souls to share some reflections with me. I'm going to call on maybe 3 or 4 people who would like to share what in loco parentis means. And I'm going to connect all these dots here in a minute. But I would love to hear what thoughts are around in loco parentis, because I want you to start thinking about some philosophical mindset ideas in our work with every child, especially with special populations. Who would like to share what their thoughts around in loco parentis might be? Anybody? Okay, there's 1 and then 2.
Number 1 came scary to my thoughts because I have 2 of my own children. They're scary raising them. Number 2, we sometimes are the only adult, mature adult in our students' lives. As we meet with parents, we realize that they're still not involved yet either. And so what I have in mind when I'm working with my students is maybe I am the parent and I want what's best for the child, and sometimes it's hard and you have to do a tough love approach, but really get to the root of what the student is going through and help them maneuver through the system, guide them, and be a parent.
Thank you very much. Yes, awesome. That was great. Let's come here. Here's 1. What are your thoughts?
So basically along the same lines, I wanted the best for my kids when they were in school. I wanted somebody to work with them for they could be as successful as possible. So when I'm working with a student, I want to work hard, bend over backwards so that they can be successful also.
Thank you so much. Exactly. Anybody else? Yes. Come up here. Got 1 up here. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, that's pretty powerful. For your own child, would you not do anything for your own child? Would you not stand up against the fiery gates of hell for your own child? Right? And what if you have multiple children? Anybody in here have multiple children? Oh Lord, I have 2 of them living in the home. Oh yeah, multiple children. So, as a parent, is it all but that one of my kids, or is it all of my kids that I would stand up for? Even the one that's really difficult and talks back every day? Yeah. Even the one that doesn't listen to a thing you say ever? Yeah. You walk through hell for them. Even the one that doesn't fit your family norms? Boy, that's a tough one. Right? Am I right? Every family has culture and norms, right? And not every child that you give birth to will want to be part of those norms or fit in those norms or, right? Or whatever the ideas are, right? Do you stand up for that child as a parent? Absolutely. Are you kind of getting the gist of what I'm saying? Who else? Who else wants to share? Yes.
One here and there. Have them feel that they belong at school. They need to be part of us.
Family. That's right. They need to belong.
I think it's a lot of having compassion for why you want to do for this. And you do your children, you have to do it for them because you are an extension of their family. The parents are going to trust that you're going to be the best version of yourself so they can have a role model when they're not around. So you're technically a parent.
That's right. So I loved all of these comments, but that one in particular around you have to love them like they're yours while they're with you. That's big. That's different than we're just going to schedule kids because we got to get scheduling done. That's different than we're just going to put kids in this class because this is the grade they got in math and so they're just going to be non-college track. If you love them, do you care about their future? Do you allow your own child who's 14 years old to make a life-altering decision for themselves? Or do you as the parent step in and give them whatever support it takes to get them on the right track? Right? So I want to kind of connect the dots on this, and you can probably see where I'm going. But when we're in loco parentis, we are making decisions for a child as if they are our family, and hopefully with love and compassion for every single child. And I know that you wouldn't even be in this room today if you weren't those kind of educators, right? I know you wouldn't be here if you weren't. That's why you're here. But I want you to think about all the things you do in a district to support every child, all of our children in special populations who need our help, as if they are your very own child. And that is what guides my work. And it guides everything I do. So that when there's a threat to my undocumented children who are my own children, stand right up. Resolution and change to board policy. We will continue to serve. We will give every support possible and those students will be successful. Period. We will give them whatever support possible. When there's the threat to my LGBTQ kids who are made to feel uncomfortable because maybe they don't fit on traditional gender norms, and they come to me and they say, Dr. DeLeon, why do I have to pick up 2 different graduation gown colors that I don't feel that I fit either boy or girl, and I have to select a color when I graduate because we have 2 colors. Girls get 1 color, boys get... Why? We change our graduation ceremony policy. 1 unifying color for all kids. Because anytime any one of my children is ostracized or felt uncomfortable or made to feel an outcast, that's not good enough. Even 1 child. But we'll talk more about LGBTQ in a minute. Because that is a special population that I don't think we give enough attention to at all, and there are some things we can do. So, let's talk a little bit about vision, core value, mission. I'm going to tie some things together. So, this is mine, and I'm just using ours because it's convenient, because I know. Ours is the Oxnard Union High School District Vision is one of high expectations and powerful futures for every student, and there's that pesky every word again. And this is our priority goal: prepare students for college, career, and life readiness, ensuring that every student is challenged to successfully access rigorous curricula and 21st century learning strategies that lead to tangible post-secondary outcomes beyond the diploma. So for us, we have called out that when students leave, when graduates leave, diploma is the base, that's the minimum, because you all know that in today's society, a high school diploma isn't going to get you far. They've got to leave with a 2 or 4 year college acceptance, placement in an internship or externship, vocational education placement, military, job placement. They've got to leave with college credits. They've got to leave with a pathway. They've got to leave with more in their portfolio than just their diploma. They've got to be on a path. Our kids leave us, they graduate on a Friday. We have to know what they're going to do Monday morning, and they have to know what they're going to do Monday morning. And it can't just be they wake up and they don't know. And for years and years and years, I think traditional education has put out a lot of kids that Monday morning after they graduate, they have no clue what they're doing. Now, here's where I'm going to tie some pieces together. There's always been a certain percentage of students who know what they're doing Monday morning, right? And we have some very ambitious kids who come in and they're ready to go, and they go, I want college, and this is what they do. We also have programs like AVID that take underrepresented students and help them become college ready. That's like 15% of a high school population who take AVID. What about the other 85? And my question is always to my staff and to my community and to my kids and to everybody, what about the other 85? Okay, and our special programs kids especially are in that 85. So here's what I want to say about that and how I'm going to tie it in loco parentis in. So so clearly articulated targets and outcomes for kids, systematic intentional supports. So how does that connect within loco parentis and to every child? So here's what I want to tell you about. I'm going to give you an anecdote, a short anecdote. So when I started as superintendent a year and a half ago, I started with my intention, see it says intentional supports, intention around how do we reach the other 85? How do we reach every child? So in the past, we had always sort of, either kids were in AVID or kids would come to us and say, I want college. And as a new superintendent, I went to a lot of meetings and listened to a lot of speakers. And often they were graduates of the OUHSD. Like literally every day I run into a dozen people who graduated from one of my schools. Whether it was last year or 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 50 years ago. Everybody in this area, a lot of people graduated from OUHSD. They did. And it would break my heart. Like literally make me want to cry. Because these really successful kids who were migrant students, who were special education students, who were English learners, poor kids, right, would be speaking at a conference and they'd be talking about their success. My own staff would tell me this, because I have a lot of staff who graduated from our district. And they would be saying, man, I had to work so hard, you know, nobody would put me into college-ready classes, and I had to go and I had to demand that I was in college because I was an English learner and they would just put me in non-college track. Or I was undocumented and they would just put me in non-college track. Or my mom and dad had to take off of work one day, which really cost them a lot to do that because they had to fight for me to be in a college track. I heard it over and over. Like every day, somebody would tell me a story like that, and it would break my heart, and I would think, why was it incumbent upon their parent, who might be working 3 jobs or in the fields, why did their parent have to come down to demand it? Where are their parents while they're with us? Okay, so think about it. Think about your own child. If your own child maybe didn't do well in math, and I'll give you my own child as example. My own child, Haley, who is in college to be a nurse at this time, never did very well in math. Haley hated math. Hated every day. I hate math, I hate math, I hate math. She just set herself up to not do well in math. And she didn't do well in math. No matter how much mom was like, you can do math. Right? And so she really wasn't on the college science track, because traditional high schools for years and years and years and years, we would put you into the college track and the college sequence for lab science. You see approved lab science based on what? Your math score. Right? So there's just a whole bunch of kids that would just get non-college track because of math. And we would make decisions like that as a system without thinking about it. And what I'm asking my staff to do, and our district to do, and what I'm asking you all to consider today is this, is that we flip the system. That we automatically and systematically and intentionally raise the expectation in the bar, put kids in the college track default system, and then raise the support so they can make it. Versus making it incumbent upon a parent to come down and demand. Why would we do that? Now, I had to go to the school and demand that my child be put in college track because she wanted to be a nurse. And I did that for her. But what about all the parents who can't do that? Who can't come down? So if we take in loco parentis seriously, and we're going to put our money where our mouth is around every student, which is italicized and is usually bold and underlined, then we are going to do things as a system to ensure that everybody gets a chance. That it's not up to luck. It's not random, because if your supports are random, your results will be random. It's a system. So here's one of the first things as superintendent that I suggested and I threw out there for my team, and we decided to do it. We decided to give the PSAT to every single 9th through 11th grader. And we will do that. We will continue to do that. That's huge. That's huge, because it used to be just AVID kids took the PSAT, because that's part of AVID. You take the PSAT. But remember, only 15% of kids are in AVID. What about the other 85? That's my question. That's my ongoing question. And our special programs kids fall into the other 85 usually. So every child takes the PSAT. So when we decided to do that as a system, because we're not going to make kids ask, we're going to make sure they do it, because we're raising the bar for every child and raising the supports. When we did that, I cannot tell you how many people came to me. I had everybody, all kinds of staff members, administrators, teachers, support staff say, English learners are going to take the PSAT. Dr. DeLeon, really? Every child, special ed kids, we have to give it to, what? Migrant ed kids? You want them to take the, wait a minute, now you know certain kids, they're not going to sit there and take it seriously. You know that, right? You know that. Shut that conversation down. Shut it down. Every means. Every means. Every. But Dr. DeLeon, really? You want my SDC math kids to sit for the PSAT? What did I say? Every. Because we're not going to allow a child, a 14-year-old who says, I don't want to go to college when they're 14, to make a life-altering decision like that. We are going to step in as parents and say, we're going to help every single one of you to have multiple options and be college and career ready. And even if that bar is really, really high for you and where you are right now, we're going to put the supports in place to help you reach that bar. Because here's rule number 1 if you want to reach every child. Raise the bar, raise the support. Never lower the bar. Never lower the bar. Because the minute you lower the bar, and the minute you say, okay, well, we won't have SDC kids do it, then the next group of people come and say, oh, well, what about our newcomers? They don't have to do it either. Oh, okay, they don't have to do it. And then suddenly, what are you doing? 50% of your kids aren't doing it. You've lowered the bar. You've lowered it. Never lower the bar. So that brings another thing to mind. Everybody in this room, and pretty much every educator I've ever met, has got a lot of compassion for kids. And sometimes we have so much compassion for kids that we think the best thing for them is to water down so they can make it. And we do. I walk into some classes and I'm shocked by watered down instruction. That's not because they don't care, it's because they do care. And I call it, and I know a lot of people in the business call it, pobrecito syndrome. We'll just make sure they get through. That's a disservice. My English learners and my migrant students and my special education students, they can make it and they can achieve at very high levels. But you have to believe in the potential of kids, and you have to be willing to put the supports in place so they can reach the bar. Because every child has an innate potential to achieve greatness. You have to believe that. But if we start to believe that certain kids, we just want to get them through because certain kids go to college and certain kids just graduate, if we start to allow ourselves to buy into that, we will never, ever get them to their potential. And yes, it's up to us. Do they have to work? Yes, they have to work. But it's our job to motivate them to work. It's our job to give them the supports to reach the potential, to reach that high bar, not to lower the bar and just get them through. Water down, get them through. No, that's a disservice. That's like saying the brain of an English learner is not as good as somebody else. Their brains are fabulous. In fact, think of all the dendrites they have from speaking 2 languages. Right? Come on now. If the brains are the same, the potential is there. Innate potential for greatness. Every child. Every single solitary child. In Oxnard Union High School District, we have a very small percentage of African American students. And I looked at our last data and they were taking. And the first thing in my mind was, it's because we're not paying any attention because there's a few. It's not good enough. So this year, I said, tag you're it, to Dr. Kimberly Tresvant, my Director of Human Resources, who has gone out and started Black Scholar Mentorship programs at all of our campuses. She's taken it on herself to reach out and to make sure that all of our Black educators within our district are really, and all of us, are rallying around our African American kids, even if there's only 3%. And I think it's like 2.6. But that's enough. Because remember, one kid, it's enough. One kid is enough. So, again, raise the support, raise the bar, raise the support, but that bar has to be high for every child, and you have to believe in the innate potential for greatness in every child. And you do that by systematic, intentional supports. So when you do things, you put them in place so that there is no other default. There is no other default. So PSAT for all was one. The SAT for all is another. Every child, every 11th grader will take the SAT free of charge in the OUHSD in the spring. And our scores are probably not going to be as good as we like the first time out. Because every child, not just Avid, every child will take the SAT, but it's setting an expectation and a bar. Another automatic support, automatic intentional supports that we have, that we're doing. We have developed a default A through G curriculum. Does everybody know what the A through G requirements are for UCCSU, right? We have a default. My incredible staff got 60 courses approved for UC A through G credit, so that every course that we offer, CTE, ROP, our great Ventura County Career Educational Center staff have gotten a ton of ROP, CTE courses approved. We've gotten a bunch more in our district, so that when kids go into any course in our district, and we've aligned the sequences so that every child starting in 9th grade gets A through G. In the spring, we will approve the A through G as our grad requirements. What is that going to take to get kids through? A lot of supports. But if you don't make it systematic, then it starts to not happen for kids. But you have to keep that bar really high. You have to say everybody. Everybody. You know, there's a great group of student advocates out there called Future Leaders of America. And they keep coming to me and they keep saying, Dr. DeLeon, why is it that only certain kids go to college? Good question. Because we didn't set that bar as adults in local parentis, but we've got to set that bar. So be very intentional with your supports, systematic. There's no question that we're doing it, you're going to do it system-wide. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, you don't leave that little thing open for people to say these kids, to start shuffling kids down a non-college track or a non-whatever track. You don't let kids to be shuffled that way. You raise that bar. And then also, the removal of unintentional obstacles. So, sometimes in systems, you probably haven't figured this out, but I'm sure you haven't. It's in systems, you have unintentional obstacles. We put obstacles in place for kids that we don't mean to, but it's just because it's how we've always done business. You know? It's just because we've always done business. When we decide to make entrance into certain college, into certain courses by putting grades in another course, that's an unintentional obstacle because you haven't really given the kid the chance. That's an unintentional. Sometimes you have board policies that are obstacles. So really, when you come upon an obstacle in your district that is causing something to happen for your kids that's unintentional, you didn't mean it to happen, you need to remove those. Or you need to think about how you can, as a system, remove obstacles to success. Because I look at it as obstacles for success. Because if you're going to make kids jump through 80 billion hoops to be successful, is there something we can do to make it easier? For example, every single senior will apply for a 2 or a 4-year. They're doing it right now, as we speak. Every eligible child will apply for the FAFSA. We're doing it as we speak. Sometimes it's hard to get that paperwork in, though. Like kids have to have paperwork, income paperwork from their parents and whatnot. So we're helping them do it online so they can do it from their homes or their phones. So parents can, so it's not incumbent upon somebody having to come in. So that's what I'm talking about, and that's a simple obstacle. That's just doing something online, right? But you have to really think through a lot of those things. Look for unintentional obstacles. Both formal and informal policies, procedures, and protocols that make it hard for kids to achieve their potential. You've got them. If you're a school system, you've got informal and formal bureaucracy that makes it difficult for kids, regardless of what it is, right? You need to go through and really look at those things. If as a teacher or a counselor or whoever you are, you're always thinking, well, this is really hard for us to get this done. Well, if it's hard for you, it's probably hard for kids and their parents. So start thinking about how you can remove those things from your system to make it easier. You're looking at the ease of kids reaching their potential. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about data. And then we'll talk about supports, some direct supports. So what, then what? Okay, so sometimes superintendents are really irritating, and I will admit it. And here's what I'm irritating about. My staff will tell you I'm irritating about data. I will not let it go. I don't want to use the term data-driven. That's so overused. But you should be data-determined in your district, and you need to translate your data into kids and kids' faces. Your data is not numbers. Your data is kids. It's kids. So back in the spring, we had an all-day professional development in our district, and my staff will tell you about this. And so we talked about the fact that as a superintendent, I always set a goal of 100%, and people laugh at me. Well, because of Avery, right? I always set, and they laugh at me and they go, 100, we're never going to get, you can't statistically get to 100%. If I had like a nickel for every time I heard that, right? But I always set goals of 100%. And this is why, and this is what I talk to my staff about. That when you set, and it's okay to have benchmark goals along the way of 60, 70, 80, 90, whatever, right? But your ultimate goal should always be 100% in whatever you're doing. Because when you set other goals, like we're gonna reach 85% grad rate, you just implicitly said that you're gonna accept that 15% of your kids aren't gonna make it. And really everybody, and I said this to my staff, I would have been in the 15. I call it the implicit 15, or the implicit kids who won't. That would have been me had it not been for some great educators, because I was raised by my very ancient grandparents. They weren't young, they were in their 80s, we lived on Social Security. And I was overweight, and very, very overweight, and pretty much bullied every day of my life. And if people had to make a list of who the 15% were that weren't going to make it, I would have been in there. I would have been in. I would have. So what I did was I asked my staff, and I'm going to ask you this. Raise your hand if you would have been in the implicit 15 that's not. If your goal is 85, raise your hand if you may have been somebody who was in the 15, who would not, who you would have bet would not. Right? And what if I asked you as educators to put pictures of all your kids on the wall and then cross out a line through the kids, the 15% that you're going to bet aren't going to make it? Are you going to do that for me? Would you want to do that? What if I asked you then to turn around and call their parents and tell their parents, oh, we selected your kids for the 15 that aren't going to make it? You going to do that? Okay, so if you're not going to do that, you've got to have 100%. So you have to remember that when you set your goals, you've got to think about how you can get every kid to get there. And the only way you're going to do that is to be looking at your data constantly. So we know that grad rate for foster youth, homeless, is usually around 30%, 25 to 30% lower than the overall population at the state level, and in most districts. Ours is no different. And we have to look at that data, and we have to say that's ugly data, and we're not going to accept that data. And we're going to put supports in place to get there. They run around, the state grad rate for all students is about 83%. For foster, it's 50, 51, right? And homeless. That's not okay. It's not okay. For special ed, it runs in the 60s. I think right now the state's running at about 66% for special education students. For migrant, it runs at about 75. That's still below the 83. So you have to know that data because, and here's why I'm constantly asking my staff to look at data and why we look at it and look at it and look at it. And we pull it apart. Because if you can't accept the truth of where you're at, you won't improve. Because what I want them to do is I want them to put a face on it. Now, I'm really proud of our district. Okay, I'm going to say this, and it's not going to be good. Okay? And it's embarrassing, but I'm going to say it. Our foster youth grad rate 2 years ago was in the 30s. 20% below the state. We are now up above the state. We're at 55, 54.3 or something, okay? That's better. That's not good enough. It's not good enough. Because why? Because their attendance rate is 93.8, which is phenomenal. Our foster youth come to school, but they're not graduating. That doesn't make sense to me as a superintendent. But you have to know your data, and you have to put faces on it. So this, if there's anything I can get through to all of you today, is when you go back to your schools and you are in your learning groups, or you're with your PLCs, or you're with your admin, or whatever it is, and you're talking about numbers and everybody groans, oh, we're going to do data analysis, and everybody goes, oh, data analysis? I want you to be the person in the room who says, those are kids. And start to put faces to those numbers, because those numbers are kids. It's not just numbers. So let's be clear and let's not forget about that. So, CASIP achievement. Okay, so one thing you have to remember very clearly is at the 11th grade, that is the early assessment program. That places kids in either college level writing or math or not. So depending on their scores on the CASIP, they can go straight into college level and take no college remediation. Nobody has told them that. So we're going to be making sure our kids know that. So our data here at the state, it's pretty flat. It's been pretty flat. Our data is pretty flat. We went down a little overall in ELA. We stayed exactly flat in math. But what I'm really proud of is our special programs kids are moving up because of specific supports that we're putting in place. But you have to really put faces. And the reason I have this slide up here is you have to put faces to names. And then also look for what is missing. Their special populations are only tagged at the state for certain data. Certain data they're not tagged. Like for instance, UC-CSU eligibility, those special pops aren't tagged for that. Ethnicity is, and gender, but not everything else. So then if your kids aren't tagged, then you can't track how they're doing. So that's a lot of work to go back, but you need to find a way in your system so that if you look at your data and there are kids that you don't have information for, but you know that they're a special population, to go back and make sure that you know, that you tag them so you know. And it's not to share it with everybody, but it's so that you know what support you need to give them. So that's a really important piece. Look for what is missing. Is there data that's missing that you don't have? We're right now going back and tagging our UC-CSU eligibility for all of our foster, for all of our migrant, for everybody, because it doesn't show. It doesn't show at the state when we pull the state data. Because you'll never know if you don't do it. So we had too many supports to list them all, but I'm going to talk a little bit about supports, and I'm going to let you all talk a little bit about supports too, with each other, as we wrap up. So district level support. So let's go back to the first slide. Oops, second slide. For foster youth. So I think what I want to do is I want to ask some of you to sort of talk about a little bit about what you do for foster youth. I can tell you some of the things that we're doing for foster youth that I think is incredible and is why they're going to continue to achieve at high levels. Is the first thing, you want outreach and communication and partnerships with all of the various foster groups that are out there, group homes, with all of the legal assistance and all of that. You want to have those partnerships up front, and you want to do outreach and know who your kids are so that you can make sure they have their transportation, their social services, their foods, everything set for them so they don't have to do anything. The key for foster youth is to really have things in place. And so I would love it if there's anybody who wants to share something fantastic that they do, because, by the way, steal. Whenever you hear something, steal it. And I want to steal too. So is there anybody who has something really fantastic that they do for foster youth that they would like to share with everybody? That they have a certain plan or anything? Yes, please. I'll give you this. I love to hear great ideas, and then I'll share some more too.
Thanks. at Camarillo High School, when a foster kid comes in, our special populations counselor takes them over to the ASB bookkeeper, who welcomes them and gives them one of our t-shirts or sweatshirts of their choice. So that's just one little way we welcome them.
Absolutely, and that makes a huge difference. That's one thing we do in our district. At every site, we have a special populations counselor, and that's what they do, is they spend all their time, and that person, we pay to have that extra person, and they spend their time with all the students who fall into the special populations categories to make sure that they get that assistance. Is there anything else that somebody does that they want to? That is awesome, I love that. Anything else? I'm so proud of this camera. Oh, over here, let me go over here. Did you have your and then
I just wanted to share, I had a foster son that was going into the Ventura County Unified School District, and what they did that he really liked was that the counselor found other children that were in foster care, and they did like a guide for him, and really made him feel welcome, because he was really, really lost.
That is awesome. Setting them up with other friends and kids to keep them at school and participating and feeling. That's a big, huge thing for special populations, particularly foster and homeless kids, is helping them feel like they are really part of your community, getting them hooked up with clubs, making sure you have the transportation that they can get back home at. If they stay late for a club, don't forget about that. Those late buses are critical for our foster kids. Okay, we had one over here, and then I'm going to get some more over here. God, all these great ideas, Dr. Rice. This is awesome.
Well, thanks to VCOE, we had somebody come out and help them register for financial aid, every single senior, individually, so individually help them. And we also had Oxnard College register every single foster senior for college.
Woo! Break it down. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I can't say enough about VCOE and Oxnard College coming down and partnering with us to get every senior registered for FAFSA in college, because when I said every senior, what did it mean? Every. Who else? Who else? Somebody else had their hand up. Ray, I'm gonna run back here to Ray. You know, I haven't even had coffee this morning. This is me naturally. I swear to you. It really is.
Hi, I'm with Oxnard Union High School District, campus of the high school, and I've been the foster youth and homeless liaison in our district before, and many things we do, we work with community groups like School on Wheels, are very helpful, providing free backpacks and other things, tutoring referrals to them. We often are able to make sure they get paid for tests like the GED, the HISET, the PSAT, other things they can get funded for, and of course we work really closely with all the group homes that are in our area.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you so much. You know, that's something that is a great use of your supplemental and concentration dollars to pay for college app fees, to pay for everything for your kids. You can use that. To offset the cost of AP tests, everything.
I was going to say the VCOE Career Education Center with Laura Welber and Vicky Rivas of the Youth Leadership Development Coordinator for the El Presidio Family Services. We offer a place for them to hold their meetings for the foster youth at the Career Education Center, and then we also give them free tours of the campus whenever they come, usually 3 or 4 times a year.
That is absolutely fantastic. Thank you. Any connections? Again, those connections. It's about potential. Your foster youth have innate greatness in them, right? Potential for greatness. The problem is that they move a lot. So to give them the stability and the support so they can reach that potential. Who else? Anybody? How about, homeless youth? Yes.
So we have a SPARK program that was created many years ago with Dr. Mendoza, and so that was a class that was created to help fostering homeless students plus migrant to have an avid life class after school. So we currently have that at the middle school and at the high school, where we invite our migrant students and our homeless students and our foster. We have our liaison who try to reach us out to make sure that we do have those students attending our classes.
Oh my gosh, I love that. For those of you who didn't hear, the Spark Club for all of their homeless and migrant and foster youth, they stay after and then they provide the transportation so that they have that connection, and they talk about college and career exploration. You get them set up with colleges and they do tours after school. That is awesome. That's what I'm talking about. Anybody else have a great homeless idea they want to share for homeless students? We have about 1,600 homeless students that we know of. We're doing a lot of outreach to determine, because they're automatic free and reduced lunch once they're identified. We want to make sure they eat. So make sure that you're really getting out there and trying to identify. Yes? Who was it?
Hi, my name is Claudia and I work at Pacifica High School. I was going to mention the lunch program because we got to make sure our kids are eating. So I do follow up with our students. I work with the big population of McKinney-Vento. We also make sure that they have the free PE clothing, the bus tokens. The other thing I was doing while I was at Channel Islands, I had an agreement with the athletic director, and we used to include all of our students to come to the football games, any games that they wanted to, and we were not charging them. That became a little bit complicated in how we were tracking them, but it was something that was very special to them because these kids normally don't attend any activities there at the school, but they felt really welcome and they liked that.
Oh, awesome. So your free ASB activities cards for all high schools and middle schools have ASB activities. For prom, think about having a prom closet, and that'll help your homeless, foster, and poor kids, and that's where anybody from the community and former students donate dresses and tuxes, and they're really nice, and they can go and select something so they don't feel left out, and they can participate in those programs. That's another huge thing that's been really successful in districts. Yes?
This is from middle school district. One of our elementary schools, we have classroom ambassadors, and 2 classroom ambassadors are picked every month. So what we do is that whenever we get any of those kids, and you know, as you mentioned, foster kids and homeless, they move a lot. So they become their friends for the day. They get them to tour the school, and a lot of times they keep them as friends. So that's, again, you mentioned that connection, and that's kind of what we want to do.
I love that. So buddy, like a student buddy program, mentor program, I love that. That is great because having that peer connection is important, because as much as they love us adults and we want adult connections, sometimes the peer connection is even more powerful. So that's huge. Yes?
Hi, my name is Alfredo Gutierrez and I work for the Oxnard School District, and I am the foster and homeless liaison. And we went a little further. We want to make sure that our homeless kids don't go hungry on the weekends, so we started a food backpack program where we provide a backpack full of food for the kids, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the weekend, like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we have over 300 kids participating right now, so that's one of our biggest programs that we have right now.
I need to call and talk to you. That's awesome. Oh my, who else does that? Does anyone else do that for weekend food? Oh wow, we do supper program. Anybody here do supper program? Make sure you do supper program. It's part of the free and reduced lunch. You can get reimbursed for it, and that's like late afternoon. So any kids who are there maybe for your Spark program, whatever, they get to eat. That's really important. So I love that. I'm going to call you and find out how you did that. That's cool. Thank you. Make sure I get your name. Okay. Yes, do you have one?
Last year we received 140 ham dinners with dessert, and this year the donor is offering 1,000 turkeys for Thanksgiving and 1,000 hams and desserts for Christmas, and he wants to also provide 1,000 meals for homeless families and elderly and seniors, you know, to deliver their hot meal. I know it sort of helps because the families, kids eat every day, so but whatever it takes. And he also wants to do a weekend hot meal program.
Oh, that is fantastic. You know, Dr. Rice, I think we need to have like a resource web page where everybody can put their great ideas and we can share, because we don't get to share often enough, and I love that. So, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. So, migrant education, let's talk about that. Nowadays, and obviously undocumented kids, immigrant students, they're not all migrant students. The laws are more tough now to qualify kids for migrant ed because it's 22-mile radius, right? And particularly in Oxnard, Plain, and Camarillo, the kids, their parents work within that on various farms, and so they don't qualify for migrant ed. But really reaching out and identifying kids who are still agricultural kids and our immigrant students, although we're not allowed to ask, definitely offering the supports and making sure that they're able to get the supports, making sure there's somebody in your district who's in charge of migrant ed. As with all of these, I know you have that, but making sure that, I think our migrant ed, I'm so proud of our migrant education program, I just have to say, out of all the subgroups, all of our subgroups went up significantly in the CASA, ELA and math, but they went up the most of everybody, like almost double digits in ELA and mathematics. And I think a huge part is we have a phenomenal staff, by the way, who are both here. Ms. Connie Severa and also Lupe Reyes is here today. But we have a migrant family advisory council, and it's separate than our ELAC, or our DLAC. It's for migrants specifically, and our immigrant parents specifically, because they have different issues that aren't necessarily just covered in DLAC. And they are a very powerful and outspoken and advocate group, and boy, when we don't do something, they will tell us. But that is the best thing you can do, right? Is to get your parents to the table. So that's huge. I know I'm running out of time. I want to touch on LGBTQ real quick and what supports are out there, because this is really, really important, particularly at the middle school and high school level, but even in elementary school now. Really important, and there's not a lot out there because a lot of students don't identify. And sometimes it's because they don't know themselves yet, but they don't identify necessarily, so it's really hard. But I'm going to give you some data around LGBTQ. This is really important. I just added this one up there, and I know you'll bear with me on it. But this wasn't part of the four he gave me, but I want to add this. A lot of people, okay, so when we went with the single color grad gowns to support our kids who are on the spectrum and don't fit into the traditional gender norms, we got lots of hate mail. I got called everything under the sun. You would not believe, I got emails from God knows where. I mean, I don't even know. So, and a lot of the comments were, you're gonna change a 50-year tradition for 3 kids. Well, I got news for you, everyone. The data shows that probably 10% of every school campus are students who are LGBTQ or who don't identify on traditional gender norms. 10%. At a high school campus, that's 200 to 250 kids, right? It's not 3. It's just that they don't speak up. And if they don't speak up, you've got to think about what it is in your climate and culture that prevents them from doing that. You really, really do. Make sure that you have supports available and that you're accepting of every student, that to make sure there's a club, that you have GLAD on campus, that there's clubs on campus where they can feel really welcomed. I have to say Rancho Campana High School is way out in front on this in every way. They celebrate the LGBTQ community. Those students feel loved and warm, and I want that to be in every single school. But it's hard to find out how they're feeling if you don't know who they are. So what I just found out last week, and I'm going to share this with you, the California Healthy Kids Survey has a module for LGBTQ that you can buy as a district for $100 a district. $100. I think we can afford that. And that module is that when your kids at all grade levels take the California Healthy Kids Survey, there's a module they just continue on that if they are LGBTQ, they answer questions about how they're feeling, how they're treated at school, what services they have, and all of those things. And to me, that's 100% worth it because it's really hard to find out. So that's important. I also want to tell you that training is everything in all of these. Training your staff is everything. Kaiser Permanente Hospital has a phenomenal in-service program, and if your district participates in Kaiser, maybe even if you don't, you can participate. They have training around both mental and physical health, and how to help LGBTQ teens and preteens thrive, both emotionally, mentally, and physically. And they have those trainings, and they hold them at the Woodland Hills Kaiser. And I took a team there, and I know Ray has been, I've been, James has been. So if you get a chance, it's something a lot of people don't know about, but they really need to know. Because again, every child, right? So anyway, I wanted to end with that. I want to know if you have any questions, concerns. Yes? Oh, LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning. Some people call it queer, but it's queer or questioning. And then there's more. So that's what that is. Anybody else? Any questions or comments? Oh my gosh, you have been the most. Oh, there's one. Come here. Come here. They're coming.
I'm just curious how your district has dealt with the math and the science, not bridging both of those, because there is a lot of math in the science classes. So how are you finding, that healthy balance with that?
That is a really good question. How do we bridge the math and science? So we have integrated mathematics, and we have now UC approved science, lab science at 9th grade. They can take UC approved, we got geology approved for lab and bio. So depending on what their career aspiration is, they can take one or the other. And it's the same at the college level, by the way. The kids that are going into the humanities at college will take a statistics track, so they can do research, and kids who don't will take an college algebra track. And what we're doing is partnering with Channel Islands and Oxnard College to help us write a year 4 math course that'll prepare kids to go into college, either statistics or algebra. So it's like 2 strands that we're preparing right now. And that's kind of how we work with it. Find out, career planning and finding out what kids want to do. I can't emphasize enough how important that is. Any other questions? Comments? You have been the most phenomenal crowd today. Thank you so much for having me. I feel so blessed to be here.